Mark Rogers TV back with you to talk some Virginia Tech football with the Hokies opener against William and Mary just about a day and a half away. We bring in, not physically, but verbally, we bring in Chuck Workman and also Justin Morgan of Gobbler Country. They've done an outstanding job for us a number of times breaking down the Hokies. We've got some audio-visual issues that we're working around, so the most important thing, we're going to treat this like a podcast, and we can hear exactly what Chuck and Justin have to say in breaking down Virginia Tech 2014. Gentlemen, I know you're out there somewhere.
Thanks for having us, Mark.
Hey, Mark.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Again, the Hokies coming off of 15-11 the last 2 years, in not breaking into the top 25, a bit of a downgrade decline from where they've been in the past. Let's get started by talking about an interesting nugget that I just came across here in the last couple of days. So there was a glass trophy case, empty one, that was set somewhere in the football or athletic department, administration building there, back in 1998. And it was saved there with some type of sign to indicate that that's where the Virginia Tech Football National Championship trophy would be placed. And that was in 1998, and if for those people watching that know their history of college football, it was almost filled in 1999, and to a certain degree almost in 2000. There were a couple near misses, 2005, 2007 most notably. But now that trophy case has been removed, and I don't know if that's symbolic. There's a bit of could be a bit of an irony there as well. So just your thoughts about the trophy case being lifted.
It was a little bit arrogant and a little bit maybe the cart in front of the horse, Mark. At the time, though, there was a lot of optimism. I mean, Bearmer ball was in its heyday. We were still recruiting well, and the Tidewater was kind of still a well-kept secret in terms of recruiting, and we were kind of in ownership of the 757 in terms of all the major talent that was coming out of there. But as time goes on and as globalization proliferates, word gets out, and eventually your Nick Sabans and your Jimbo Fishers and your Bobby Bowdens back in the day and so forth start coming in and making those kids tougher to get. The location of Blacksburg is a difficult spot, to recruit to in the first place. And as time wore on, it became apparent that Beamer had difficulties in the big games. And as far as negative recruiting tactics take their toll on a program, I think we've been the victim of those the past few years. It's kind of a relief as well as an embarrassment. But at the same time, recalibration from time to time isn't a bad thing, and resetting expectations and understanding our place and in the grand scheme of things. And I think it's eventually a good move for the program to go ahead and cut ties with that, because all it did was tighten the noose around the program's neck year after year as we fell short of goals.
Well, you gentlemen know better than I do what Frank Beamer's meant to this football program that was in the abyss before he arrived and before he started to build it in the early 90s. I think the first real big game that I remember Virginia Tech playing was against Texas and winning that game in the Sugar Bowl. I believe that was the 1995 or 96 season. So regardless of what he accomplishes from here on out, his place in Virginia Tech and really college football history is well documented and cemented and cannot really be changed at this point. He receives the contract extension. Your thoughts about what it really means and if it's significant at all?
Well, Mark, I think for recruiting purposes and for just the general well-being of the athletic program, I think with Whit Babcock coming in, the new athletics director, he wants to ensure when a recruit comes in with his parents that Coach Beamer is going to be there for the next 4 or 5 years through the duration of their time here in Blacksburg. So I think that has a little to do with it. We've been struggling in recruiting the past few years, as Chuck mentioned, losing kind of our stranglehold on the Virginia recruits, and especially in the 757. So I think, negative recruiting is saying, Coach Beamer's kind of over the hill, he's not going to be there when you graduate kind of thing. I think all that kind of works with the extension and trying to skew that perception and saying, hey, Coach Beamer's still going to be here. So I think it has a lot to do with the extension. Is he going to be here through the end of that duration? We'll see. But I still expect Coach Beamer to be here for another 2-3 years.
Again, we have the big game in Bristol coming at the beginning of 2016 against Tennessee, where it's going to probably top 125,000 fans in the seats, maybe even approach 140,000 fans, depending on how the teams are performing at that given time. And I think Beamer wants to be a part of that. I think that he still feels he has stuff left in the tank. He has a more young, vibrant staff with a couple of new additions on the staff, and I think that he has 2 to 3 good years, but I will caution you, Mark. Part of the big news, the big splash that the AD Babcock has made to this point was the acquisition of Buzz Williams from Marquette, and Witt went beyond what the basketball budget could afford him to sign Witt to a long-term big money contract, wherein his money even challenged Beamer. Witt's trying to make it to where the basketball program is respected and a viable entity, even coming off of a 22-loss season. And so if football, which has had some problems with sellouts and making and donations, isn't carrying its weight by winning, we've been robbing the football program to pay this basketball upgrade, and it's it's going to require some winning on the football field to regenerate some of this interest and get us to a bowl game that's going to help put money back in the coffers. So if Beamer has another tough season, the drum's going to bang a little louder for some sort of succession plan or for him to retire gracefully, so that we don't wind up going into a Bowden Paterno situation where we're kind of just a little bit too timid to tell Grandpa that he can't drive the car anymore.
Yep. Oh yeah. We've seen it play out in those two situations. We're joined by Justin Morgan and Chuck Workman of Gobbler Country on the SB Nation platform. Let's dive into the personnel, gentlemen. It starts at quarterback. The Logan Thomas era, if that's what you'd like to call it, is over. Michael Brewer takes over as the starting quarterback. Mark Leal's a quarterback that we saw play extensively against UCLA in the bowl game last season. So your thoughts about the quarterback situation? Was this a true battle, or did Brewer definitely distinguish himself in this race?
Well, Mark, Brewer enrolled in May, so he had some summer sessions with the guys. None of that was with the coaches, obviously. So just playing a lot of 7-on-7, getting in the gym with the guys, familiarizing himself with the playbook, that kind of thing. And then, only so many limited practices in fall. So for him to come in here and essentially just yank the job out of Leal's grasp, for a fifth-year senior, I think that's pretty telling. And we know Michael Brewer's from Austin, Texas, same high school as Drew Brees. He's Texas high school football, and
he had the tutelage of, if I might interrupt, Justin, the tutelage of Clemson offensive coordinator Chad Morris when he was still in the Texas high school system. And if you've been paying attention to Texas, they're a little bit ahead on the spread concepts down there. Coming from Hart Briles over there at Baylor, just running up the score on everybody last year. They have a head start on everybody else in the country in the spread concepts. A lot of coaches are coming out of Texas and having a lot of success offensively, and I think Scott Loeffler is kind of intent on trying to install similar sets with us here at Tech. And I think Brewer, I'm not going to say that he well, for one thing, he doesn't have the arm that Logan had. Few people do, but the thing that reminds me of him is the ability to roll out and get a little bit of a running start. He can really hit receivers downfield with ease from the tape we've seen on him. It'd be a hard press to convince me that he didn't have a wink and a nod from the coaches at Tech when they recruited him out of Texas Tech for a transfer this winter, that he didn't already have that job in his pocket before the camp started. I think that because Leal is a fifth-year senior, the coaches wanted to give the impression of a completely open competition where everybody got a completely equal shot. But I think that, those of us who follow the program know that Brewer probably wouldn't have taken a chance to come east and leave home to join us in Blacksburg if he didn't have, a good indication that the job was his going in.
Well, in reviewing these wide receivers that are coming back, this has to be, aside from maybe those two cornerbacks, the bright spot in this football team, because between Joshua Stanford, Willie Byrn, Dimitri Knowles, a lot of productivity, and you got to be excited about Stanford coming off of that kind of freshman campaign. So talk about the wide receivers and the potential for some dynamic playmaking here.
Did you see the results of the closed scrimmage last Friday at all, by chance, Mark?
I did not by chance. No, I wasn't locked in on that.
Have you heard of Isaiah Ford, a Louisville decommit who went to Trinity Christian High School down in Jacksonville?
No.
If you haven't, I think you're about to. He had 3 touchdowns in a closed scrimmage. He actually won a starting job. This guy's so athletically gifted that he may, if he keeps his grades up and is in, and if they can come to an agreement with Buzz and the basketball coach and Frank Beamer, he may wind up playing a role on our basketball team this year, which we've only seen probably 3 times in the last 15 years, right, Justin? In terms of guys who are talented enough to cross over and play both sports at Tech.
Yeah, not too many.
And so what we're looking at there with Stanford is a guy who can get open on the seam routes, and we've also got Dimitri Knowles, who does have that speed to get open on the deep balls, but was never really able to connect with Logan like we like. The one that everyone's talking about, though, right, Justin, is Willie Byrn. People are predicting he might be the first. If you can believe this, Mark, we've never had a 1,000-yard receiver at Virginia Tech in all these years. Not a single one. So people are predicting that Willie Byrn in this new offense is going to be the new Wes Welker of the situation. If you're familiar with Wes from the NFL, quick slants, a lot of yards after the catch, and just good hands and an emergency outlet for obviously a quarterback who's going to be kind of unfamiliar with his surroundings at the beginning.
Let's look at the running backs. Looks like you have a number of them here. Trey Edmonds would be the guy that got the football the most last season, almost 700 yards. But a number of guys were fairly productive, at least have touched the football.
Yeah, so Mark, with our running backs, I think we're going to see a lot of new names and faces this year. So we have a true freshman in Marshawn Williams, who is listed as a co-number 1 now with junior J.C. Coleman. Marshawn came in January, worked hard, and the coaches love his size and speed. He's about 230 pounds, and he's got the shifty moves that we're used to seeing, kind of a hybrid between Darren Evans and a little Ryan Williams. Maybe not as fast, but definitely has that between the tackles aggressiveness about him. Trey Edmonds, as you remember, he got hurt in the last game of the season against UVA with a broken leg, so he's still kind of gimpy. So I think starting out this season, he's gonna slowly work his way back. Perhaps do some special teams work.
Are you gonna play gunner?
Yeah. So
you're hurt. Play gunner.
So for some reason they think that putting him on special teams is gonna help get him back into playing shape and whatnot. So that's an interesting take. But we've got Shy McKenzie, who's also another freshman, true freshman from Pennsylvania. He's coming in here, and he's listed as number 2 right now. So we'll probably see about 6 faces, is what they're saying this year at running back, with Coleman and Trey Edmonds, Marshawn Williams and Shy McKenzie, and then we've also got Joel Caleb, who's been in the program, switching back and forth between receiver and running back. He's going to be kind of a third down hybrid running back situation, kind of like a Percy Harvin position. And then we've also got a true freshman, Trayvon McMillan, that initially came in as a quarterback, but the coach is trying to get him on the field with his speed, so he might be a special kind of gadget play type of a running back.
There was going to be 8 running backs who really had their hat to toss in the ring until 2 of them decided to transfer. We lost Chris Mangus and we lost the guy who actually had the most carries for us in the Sun Bowl, Jermaine Holmes, who was listed at fullback, but he was really more tailback size. I actually had hopes for Holmes, but there's just too many names. And quite honestly, Mark, the two of us here, we've kind of been questioning why both the true freshmen need to suit up. We would prefer to stagger the classes. I mean, I know McKenzie and Williams might be both ready to play this year, but in the interest of the program, a little more decisiveness would make me comfortable at this point of the game, and we hope that we shorten the rotation down to where eventually, we're not spreading the carries around, so guys can actually kind of get a rhythm running the ball, because we thought that's been a problem the past few years. A guy gets going for a series or two, and then all of a sudden we replace him with fresh legs. Sometimes guys need, those repetitions to put together huge games.
Well, of course, it only all works if the offensive line is doing its job up front. Versatility is very important up front with injuries and guys needing to play multiple positions. The cohesiveness has to be there. So your thoughts about this offensive line group coming into next week?
Well, Mark, that's always the question in Blacksburg. It's the offensive line. We've had some injuries here in the offseason and in preseason camp. We've got a couple of guys who are redshirt seniors who have suffered, career-ending injuries in Mark Schumann and Brent Benedict. So that right there takes our tackle depth down pretty low. We're pretty paper thin at tackle, so if one of these starters goes down, we're gonna have to either play a true freshman or even a walk-on. So that's a bit worrisome. But we've got our interior linemen that are returning, so we just can't suffer any injuries. Let's just put it that way. And we've got a lot of true freshmen, redshirt freshmen. The last 2 years, I think we've recruited a total of 15 offensive linemen. They're just too green right now. So I think with the offensive line, they've got to stay healthy. If not, we may be in for a long season here.
We lost a good offensive line coach, Jeff Grimes, but it's tough to turn down an LSU offer when they're offering their assistants, way more in the SEC than anywhere else in the country. But we replaced him with a guy who used to coach in the SEC, but was at Texas also with Mac Brown before Mac Brown retired. He played a little in the NFL. His name is Stacy Searles, and he seems to have a good rapport. The problem that we've had with the offensive line so much, I honestly feel that we haven't been able to grade the offensive line the past few years like we'd like to under this new system, because with our playbook, which I referred to as the Cheesecake Factory menu, you got a kick out of that last time, I believe. Whereas there's just too many dishes for the offensive linemen, who I consider the kitchen, to handle and execute properly. So, you have a lot of mixed success with the plays that we run, because a lot of times when we're in the shotgun, we run out of the shotgun off inside handoffs, or we were a lot last year. I don't know if that's going to remain the case. And what the offensive linemen wind up having to do is sell both the pass and the run on 2 out of 3 downs, where in the past, when we had success, they simply lined up in a 3-point stance, and you knew they were trying to get a push, not necessarily try to sell the pass block when we were trying to run, or vice versa. So I think that there's been a lot of confusion, and we have not recruited the right kind of athletes who are versatile in that regard. It's tough to teach a guy who's ready to just put his head down and try to push forward as much as possible, to teach him how to sell the pass block as well, to give some sort of implication of deception. And I think that there's been a lot of confusion, and I think that as guys get more comfortable in the system, we'll be able to alleviate some of that confusion. And the interior of the line, I think we have a potential all-ACC center if he can stay healthy, in Caleb Ferris, and hopefully a smart center. It goes a long way towards line cohesiveness.
Well, the offense has been a bit pedestrian, to be kind, over the last couple of years, but it looks like you've got some playmakers in place, as long as the offensive line can do its job and Brewer can make the right decisions. Looking at the defense, to harken back to the glory days, there would be 2 guys at cornerback that would be reminiscent of the type of talent that you've had there in the past in Kendall Fuller and Brad Faison. 11 picks between those 2 guys last year. So I'm going to just kind of throw it out as a blanket statement on the defense that was pretty good last year. And I'll let you guys take it away unit by unit to take us through the entire defense.
Well, of course, the strength is up front on the line. Cory Marshall, from all reports, is going to be an absolute monster. We saw him at the spring game, Justin and I, and he took home some spring honors for his play and his dedication in the weight room and so forth. But part of the problem analyzing offensive line to this date has been he's been such a monster in practice and such a difficulty to handle that you really can't blame young offensive linemen for not being able to stay in front of them. We might be able to stay in front of 90% of the guys in the country, but I think he's really a top 10% type talent. He was big enough for them to slot at tackle, but he kind of had issues with the position among some other personal issues, so he shut it down and took a red shirt. But now he is he's able to play defensive end, defensive tackle. Luther Maddie, who you may have seen on a lot of watch lists, he anchors the middle of the defense, and I think that he's also from all the things you see on Twitter and social media, you see what kind of leader he is. He really, really is already pulled the guys aside and said, hey, we lost to JMU in 2010. We're not going to have that happen here to open this season. We're not looking past these guys to Ohio State next week. And I think that Luther Maddie, he has the personality to be a real leader. And at the end, I wasn't at the game. I think Justin was at the game last year. He might be better able to speak to the talents of Daddy Nicholas on the end and what he's capable of doing. But from what I hear, that's going to be the next speed rusher, potentially high end. He's got his sights set on Corey Moore type numbers. Actually, I think.
Yeah, so Daddy Nicholas is the high school teammate of Luther Maddie's, actually, down in Florida, our Florida connection, down at Atlantic Beach. 6'5", and this guy has got an incredible motor. He's always bouncing around, crawling on the ground, kind of a child with too much candy type of player. But this guy's always chasing down the plays. If he misses it, coming up on a edge rush and tracking down running backs. And his sack total was about 3 to 4 last year.
I think he had 5, but like 3 were in one game.
Right. He had a huge game against Pitt, but he's coming into his junior year, and we've got a lot of hope for Daddy. He's going to come up here and hopefully put up double-digit sacks, cause a lot of chaos there in the backfield, and so we've got high hopes on that. On the other end, we've got Ken Econom, who was a Parade All-American 4-star type player out of Centerville High School here in Northern Virginia. So he's going to anchor the other side of the defensive line, and so this will be his first real full season of action. So kind of a question mark. We'll see how he progresses, but from all reports during camp, he's someone that's is also going to make a difference. So I think the only one concern we have on the defensive line is depth. We've got probably one layer behind the starters, and after that, it's not much right now. It's a lot of young guys. So just like the offensive line, both sides of the balls in the trenches, we can't really suffer too many injuries there.
We have two true freshmen though who do appear physically ready to get minutes. So if we don't need to redshirt them, that'd be great. But if they need to play, then so be it. Vinny Mahota and Ricky Walker would be the names.
Okay, let's look at the schedule, guys. I've looked at every Power 5 conference schedule in America. There's a number of things that I look at. Number one would be the non-conference slate, which vary all over the place. Number two.
The defense real quick though before we get to the schedule, because
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the end of that, so I didn't know if you guys had wrapped up on that or not.
No. I didn't know that we were going unit by unit, but we can do that really quick. I know we were a little long on the line. Linebacker, we can honestly tell you we have no idea what to expect, so that should be pretty quick. We don't have a whole lot of career starts at the position. Chase Williams was named one of the captains for the opener. He's actually Greg Bountygate Williams' son from New Orleans fame. He grew up in Northern Virginia when Greg was here as an assistant for the Redskins. but he was named a captain, so we're assuming that a fifth-year senior is gonna make some plays. But once again, we had trouble with linebackers last year because Jack Tyler he graduated. Jack Tyler went to the Minnesota Vikings as a free agent. He took up so many of the reps at middle linebacker last year that he was noticeably gassed on third down on a lot of third and longs. We would wind up rushing the ends wide and leaving a space between the tackle and the guard open, and it would leave Jack Tyler one-on-one with speedy quarterbacks, and he would win not enough of those battles. And we'd have great first and second downs and then have these drive extenders on third down. So that other linebacking core, that's one thing that we want to make sure that we have some fresh legs to throw in on third down that can take over that job, if that one key player. But right now, since we play a 4-2-5 mostly with the extra D-back, it's difficult to get that contained on third down a lot, and you wind up having the quarterback with that linebacker in open space, and it can go either way sometimes. So with the linebacking core, if we can find some speed on the edges, Justin and I think will feel a heck of a lot more comfortable.
Right, and then obviously rounding out with our prized unit on the defense is the secondary. With Kendall Fuller and Brandon Faison at the corners, both of those guys played extensively as freshmen last year. And Kendall being all ACC as a true freshman. Brandon actually had a quicker start than Kendall did, but he got injured halfway through the season. But both of those guys are just dynamic talents, easily going to be all conference again this year. And to go along with Kaishan Jarrett and Dietrich Bonner at the safety positions, all returning starters, all seniors.
Well, I mean, the two safeties are seniors.
Right.
The two corners are true sophomores.
Right. But, the talent is there, and they're returning, and the cohesion is there. So hopefully the front seven can get enough pressure, to help those guys do what they do best.
Keyshawn Jarrett's hoping that he can get himself into the Cam Chancellor type status wherein he gets drafted. He lays the wood back there in the secondary, and Dietrich Bonner is the free safety. He's the weak link. He's quite often burned, and he's going to really need to up his game to match the other guys in the unit. Faison and Fuller, though, an interesting stat I looked at was presented by Andy Bitter, who's our beat writer for the Roanoke Times. He put together a stat wherein he ranked all the cornerback tandems and how many and where Faison and Fuller ranked last year in terms of interceptions by one tandem. And in their very freshman year, they were third on that list, and they probably could have had a couple more had Faison not suffered a concussion and the injuries down the stretch last year. So secondary, we feel great about. We have a couple of young candidates to take over at the safeties, and backup cornerbacks. We definitely don't want to suffer an injury. Knock on wood to either of the corners, because no one's quite as good as those two. But we always make do because of the coaching of Cory and Gray, and of course Bearmer himself played as a defensive back when he was a player, so he's always got a special insight into the unit.
All right, gentlemen, let's get to the schedule. It was Alabama last year. This year it's Ohio State is the big game in the non-conference slate. The other games should be more than winnable. Looking at the ACC and the way it kind of bothers me with the ACC, the Big Ten, and the SEC having 14 teams and having 8 conference games, you miss 5 opponents. So it's a huge disparity between certain teams in regards to the strength of schedule. So for Virginia Tech, you play in this. Wow, you play in this coastal division where it's just up for grabs. Duke was able to win it last year. North Carolina's there, Georgia Tech's there, Virginia Tech, Miami. It should be a free-for-all again. You don't have to play Florida State, Clemson, and Louisville. Your thoughts about how this team can handle this schedule?
Well, we sure dodged a bullet by not playing those 3 teams in the Atlantic, did we? But that's just the way it is. We got to play with what's in front of us. Most of those ACC games should be winnable. We've got a big Thursday night against Miami, but that's in Blacksburg. 2 road games that are very high on our radar are at Pitt and at North Carolina that we could potentially trip up there. But outside of Ohio State, I think those are the 2 games. the 3 games, 4 games that we should really keep our radar up for as potential pitfalls. But the rest of the games, like you said, Mark, they're very winnable. We've won those in the past in regularity, so I don't think there should be any issue with winning at least 8 games this year.
I'm of the opinion, Mark, that 9 games is the bare minimum that we should win. We should win 10. I think that the Ohio State game and the Pitt game are eminently losable. However, Pitt, I don't know if you went over them with their webs with your contact over there yet, but they've lost a lot in the defensive backfield. So if we can establish some sort of quick hitting passing game and move the ball and execute the game plan that Scott Loeffler wants us to execute, that Pitt game could actually turn into a win, simply because our strength might actually correspond with their weakness with all the attrition they've had in the defensive backfield. They're really, really thin. But as we know, Hines, we call it the Hines House of Horrors. They really, really take it to us and whip us every time we go up there. It's not even been close a couple of times. It's 38-7 once, 35-17 another time. Games that just weren't even close. Games that were so out of character where even our defense didn't play well. So it'd be difficult for us to predict a win at Pittsburgh, just like it used to be difficult to predict a win at the Carrier Dome. We always had problems up there. As did a lot of teams. A lot of teams have problems with the noise in the Carrier Dome, especially when their team is good. But the Ohio State game, even with Braxton Miller going down, they have, Barrett, who's supposedly a dual threat quarterback, and I'd be hard pressed to say that we would lose by the 18 that Vegas had to open the line. I'd say though that they might put that line at 13.5, 14 to get a lot of bets on either side of the 2 touchdown mark. Going to Columbus is never easy, and for a group that's just trying to find itself, it'd be tough. It'd be hard pressed. So I have us at 10-2 because I don't think Miami's defense is any good. Who can really believe Duke is for real twice in a row? Plus, going to their building is not scary at all, even though we're on the road. And I really don't have much respect for the North Carolina football program. People expect big things out of them every year, and they just never deliver. So, I don't think this is going to be any different, particularly with all the distractions surrounding them with the academic stuff and, of course, this hazing incident that just took place. That's going to resonate throughout the year. So I have us at 10-2, winning the Coastal, and then probably losing by 50 to Florida State in the ACC championship game.
Well, somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, right?
And so, Chuck, you're swaying me against my North Carolina pick to win the division and lose by 50 to Florida State, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, North Carolina always has speed. They always have recruits, but they don't have the infrastructure, and they don't have a coach that I haven't seen their coach do anything out of the ordinary. I mean, even though Bearmer has a 1-30 record against top 5 teams, he wins a lot of years. He'll win the 10 he should and lose the 2 or 3 he shouldn't. He shouldn't win. And with North Carolina, you'll just see results where they get beat by an ECU 55-31 last year, and that's just you can't go doing that and call yourself a contender to be among the elite.
Yeah, in that Ohio State game, people are chalking that up as a loss, and it most likely will be. But at the same time, despite all that 5-star talent and top 5 recruiting classes, they had issues in spots last year. And, of course, as you mentioned, Braxton Miller not there, so you face an inexperienced quarterback. So that will be a game.
It will be a closer game than I think a lot of people think. But, they are also a young team. All that talent is young. And with Ohio State, they get so many 5-stars that you have to imagine that some of those 5-stars are going to take advantage of this newfound playing time and that they're going to make plays. But I think it's there's a formula that we execute during big games on national TV, and that usually involves a couple of red zone stalls, a couple of special teams miscues, and essentially helping the other team win the game. I mean, if you remember the Alabama opener last year, their offense couldn't move the ball, but we had those returns for touchdowns on special teams, and then we threw a pick touchdown on our own side of the field and a short field, and these are things that are kind of in our DNA here, and it's very hard pressed for us to think that that things are going to change miraculously for some reason. but I definitely expect a closer game than a lot of people are giving it credit for at this point.
Yeah, you did well against Alabama. Forget the score. 7 sacks, I think, and held down T.J. Yeldon to like 75 yards rushing. So they pretty much couldn't do much of anything on offense. But, yeah, the punt return, the interception return, and things unravel from there. So behind the scenes there, we got Chuck Workman and Justin Morgan from Gobbler Country on the SB Nation platform. Gentlemen, we appreciate the time. We will flag you down a little bit later in the season, talk up some of these big games in the ACC.
We can't wait, Mark.
Thanks for having us, Mark. Appreciate it.